Right now, we go to the Newsmaker line and welcome back to the Schilling Show, Corey Stewart, Republican for U.S. Senate. Hey, Corey, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, always great to be on your show, Rob.
All right, so there was a really remarkable poll that was out just a few days ago. And by the way, I didn't hear a whole lot about it in the news media. Maybe they're ignoring that one, but you can tell us the news right now.
Yeah, well, they really should have, because this is the first poll that was of likely voters, and it's also the most recent poll. And what it shows is that we've made up a lot of ground, and we're now down to within 5 points of knocking out Tim Kaine. We're down to 5 points.
You know, this is very important. You mentioned likely voters, and I don't understand why they would release polls that weren't likely voters, because those are very misleading, and those were some earlier polls that were showing a much bigger gap. Maybe you understand the polling better than I do, but what's the point if you're interviewing people who may not be likely to vote?
Well, that's a good question. I think that, these are polls that are coming out of these universities. The universities' political science departments usually run by liberal professors, and they don't even bother polling registered voters, let alone likely voters. They're just randomly dialing numbers and asking people who they're going to vote for. And of course, it gives a distorted result because Tim Kaine's got more name recognition, but when you take a look at likely voters, which this Pool House Signal poll that just came out, that shows that we're within 5 points. And what the polling firm published was that, and by the way, this polling firm did this on their own. This is not commissioned by either my campaign or by Kaine's. But it said this comes after 3 weeks of Tim Kaine running all those ads, spending all that money, and even after doing that, and we haven't run any ads, he's only 5 points up over us. So that's a pretty good indication about where this is going.
We're talking with Corey Stewart. The first thing I noticed was somebody went over there to one of the political science people at UVA and asked him, and they said, "Oh, there's lots of polls. There's no way this one's correct." They never did mention what you just told us was that whole component of likely voters. So I think you're right. I think that there's definitely a bias at these institutions in the way even that they analyze other people's data.
The thing is, if you didn't vote in 2016, the presidential year, and 2017, the big, turnout year for governor, then there's a very, very slim chance that you're going to vote in 2018, which is a midterm election. And so, the likely voters only poll, those voters who voted in both 16 and 17. But these university polls that show me so far many points behind, those are just, they're just dialing any old person, whether or not they voted in those two elections or not. And that's why this latest poll is such great news for us. And it comes right after Tim Kaine ran those terrible ads where he's driving around in a single car with no other cars on the road. Very goofy ads. They look like, Kia ads or something, like car ads. And but they're not having any effect because people know that Tim Kaine has done nothing, no accomplishments, and that he's an automatic no against everything that President Trump is proposing.
Let's go to the phones because we do have people interested in asking a question. I'm going to ask you to go quickly because we don't have a lot of time with Corey. We say hello to Greg. Greg, go right ahead. You're on with Corey Stewart.
Corey, anybody that's the Commonwealth of Virginia that doesn't get behind you is just going to throw the country away. The Chinese, the Russians, and the Iranians are laughing at us while we implode within, and the universities are selling their secrets by getting paid off by Chinese operatives who give universities a lot of money. I know you'd be against that, and also know that you will bring America back like Donald Trump, and anybody that doesn't vote for you is really, in my opinion, just throwing the state of Virginia and the country down the rat hole. And I just hope you win, and I'm Greg Quinn, and I support you.
Well, thanks a lot, Greg. I mean, here's just the latest thing, of course, that Tim Kaine said he's going to vote against Brett Kavanaugh for the next Supreme Court justice, who even the dean of Yale Law School has said is eminently qualified. Tim Kaine is an automatic no to every single thing that President Trump opposes or people he nominates. Even if it's good for Virginia, Tim Kaine votes no. When President Trump, proposed a pay raise for our military, Tim Kaine voted no. When President Trump voted or proposed rebuilding our military, including the 355-ship Navy, Tim Kaine voted no. When President Trump proposed a big tax cut that we're now all benefiting from, Tim Kaine voted no. He's an automatic no. Kaine is an automatic no to everything that is proposed by the president, even if it's good for Virginia.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and Chris, I'm going to get to you in just a second, 977-1070. I think the whole basis of Tim Kaine's vote was on the pro-death agenda of the Democrat Party, the pro-Planned Parenthood and pro-abortion lobby of the Democrats. Tim Kaine says he's a Catholic, and I think he should be excommunicated for his positions on abortion. Let's go back to the phones and say hello to Chris. Chris, you're on with Corey Stewart.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart, I had you autograph my biography of George Washington back in the Tea Party days when you came to Charlottesville and spoke one time. And I've been watching you, and you got my vote. I'm hoping that you'll get up there and help Mr. Trump change this country and bring it back to what it needs to be and what we're used to it being. At the same time, I would like to hear you rebuke the neo-Nazi, white supremacist narrative that the left seems to want to tag on you, and I think that the more that we're able to distance ourselves from those groups, the more effect we'll have. And I wish you all the best. Godspeed, sir.
Well, thanks a lot. And that's the thing. That's what the left has been doing, is they're trying to label all of us who support the president, all of us who are conservatives, all of us who want to crack down on illegal immigration, all of us who want to, preserve our history, all of us who, want to do these great things for the country and who oppose the leftist agenda. They label us, all these terrible things, white nationalists, yada, 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 racist. But I think people can look through that. I think the average Virginian, certainly the Virginians who are going to vote this November, can see through these false attacks that, they've been labeled, not just me, but the president and, everybody else on down, any conservatives, anybody who supports the president, they're labeling us as racist, et cetera, et cetera. But people are smarter than that. And I think that this latest poll shows that people can see through those attacks.
Well, Corey, they've really, this shows me two things. Number one, they've really got nothing else to say about you. And number two is that they are the ones who are just hyper obsessed with race. These are the true racists who are looking for a racial divide in every issue for their own political gain.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rob. I mean, the left is obsessed. And the Democratic Party, once upon a time, used to be a good party. It used to be the party that supposedly represented the blue-collar guy, the average American. Not anymore. The Democratic Party has been taken over by the far, far left. And all that they try to do is divide Americans by race. They're obsessed with racial issues. And they know the Democrats are deliberately trying to divide people by race because they know that if they don't, they're going to continue to lose elections. So this is their Hail Mary throw to try to win elections, putting up this false narrative about conservatives being racist. And ultimately, I think it's backfiring on them because people can see it. And we're in for a very, very good year on November 6th. I think Virginia is going to, and across the country, we're going to see gains by the Republican Party across the country.
We have got something going on locally here that I wanted to get your take on, especially since you have been cited as being one of the strongest local proponents of enforcing our immigration laws. And so we've got City Councilor Wes Bellamy and a group of leftist anarchists locally that are trying to stop the local jail's cooperation with ICE. Even in the case of very serious felonies, they don't want ICE to be made aware when someone's being let out of jail back into our community. I'd like to get your comment on that, please.
Well, what Wes Bellamy is doing, what Tim Kaine is doing, instead of removing, and supporting ICE and other federal and local and state law enforcement officials who are identifying criminal illegal aliens who commit crimes against American citizens, who should be deported. Instead of helping them out with that, they're demonizing ICE. They're demonizing the very law enforcement officials, local police, all the way up to the state troopers and others. They're demonizing them instead of cooperating. The Democrats, Tim Kaine, and everything else, instead of trying to protect the American citizens, they're demonizing the police. They're demonizing immigration customs enforcement. And, you know, these are the only people, ICE and local law enforcement people, this is the thin blue line between we as citizens and our families and the criminal element that has been let loose on the American public by Democrats.
It's really disturbing to watch all of this, and yet it's playing out before our eyes, and I think that the lines are very clear between one side and the other, between Corey Stewart and Tim Kaine, between anarchy and the rule of law. Corey Stewart, if people want to get more information on your campaign, they want to support you, they want to get signs or stickers, tell us how, please.
Go to CoreyStewart.com, and on Facebook and on Twitter, it's Corey Stewart DA. We need their financial help, but we certainly do need volunteer help. We're on our way. We're hitting our stride right at the right time. We're going to win this thing and take back Virginia and defeat Tim Kaine.
Corey Stewart, thanks so much for joining us today on The Schilling Show.